We think of laws as instruments of order and reason. But somewhere between a good intention and the final vote, things can get wonderfully strange. We are about to expose 50 real American food laws that defy all logic, proving that sanity is not a required ingredient in legislation. This is a journey into the minds of lawmakers who decided the most pressing issue of the day was the legality of a bouncing pickle. 1. During Prohibition, the U.S. government banned alcohol, but created one of the greatest loopholes in history: medicinal whiskey. A doctor could legally write you a prescription for a pint of whiskey every 10 days, which you could then fill at a pharmacy. Suddenly, millions of Americans developed ailments that could only be cured by a dose of Old Granddad. This is the single reason the Walgreens pharmacy chain exploded from 20 stores to nearly 400 in the 1920s. They were one of the few places legally pushing booze. The government accidentally made whiskey the most popular prescription drug in the nation. 2. Making audible noises while consuming soup is strictly forbidden in New Jersey. That's right, the state famous for its tough guy persona has a surprisingly delicate sensibility when it comes to table manners. This local ordinance essentially weaponizes politeness, turning a satisfying slurp into a potential misdemeanor. So should you find yourself enjoying a bowl of minestrone in the Garden State, remember to do so with the silence of a cat burglar. Your public record and perhaps your dignity could be on the line. 3. In Chicago, a city ordinance makes it illegal to eat in a place that is on fire. This isn't a culinary suggestion, it's a legal command. The law isn't concerned with your food tasting a bit smoky. It's a public safety measure born from a truly astonishing premise. It implies the city once had a problem with patrons who were so dedicated to their meal that they would ignore flames, smoke, and screaming firefighters just to finish their steak. It's perhaps the greatest, if unintentional, compliment to a city's food scene. The food is so good, people would literally rather die than leave it unfinished. 4. Technically, the fortune cookie is an illegal food in the United States. It directly violates the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which forbids embedding any non-nutritive object inside candy, the very same law that makes Kinder Surprise eggs contraband. Yet, for reasons nobody can explain, the FDA has never enforced this rule against the fortune cookie. It exists in a bizarre legal limbo, protected only by a cultural blind spot. The government effectively decided that a toy is a dangerous choking hazard. But a slip of paper is just a harmless prediction of future wealth. 5. The city of Topeka, Kansas, apparently harbors a deep-seated distrust of teacups, as restaurants there are legally banned from serving wine in them. This rule is a classic relic from the Prohibition era, designed to foil speakeasies that were sneakily disguising booze as afternoon tea. Today, however, it stands as a solemn warning against whimsical beverage presentation. It's a reminder that there was a time when the government was genuinely concerned that your fine china was a gateway to rampant debauchery. 6. Seattle, Washington, the home of grunge music, tech billionaires, and an almost religious devotion to coffee. It's also a city where the law once declared a holy war on Sunday dessert, making the sale of pie a criminal offense. This is another ghost of America's old blue laws. Puritanical rules designed to keep the Sabbath sacred by making it as boring as humanly possible. Though no longer enforced, it paints a hilarious picture of a place where you could invent the future in your garage, but couldn't legally buy a slice of rhubarb pie on your day off. 7. In Illinois, a law specifically makes it illegal to manufacture or sell candy that contains any substance poisonous or injurious to health. This sounds incredibly obvious, but it has dark origins. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, some unscrupulous candy makers would use dangerous chemicals like lead, arsenic, and mercury to create vibrant colors. The law was a direct response to a very real public panic over poisoned sweets, a time when buying a lollipop for your child felt like a roll of the dice. 8. In Marion, South Carolina, a local ordinance makes it illegal to eat a watermelon in the city's Magnolia Cemetery. This rule is a stunning masterpiece of legislative precision. It doesn't ban all food from the cemetery, only watermelon. And it doesn't ban this specific fruit from all public places, just this one hallowed ground. The practical origin story is likely that visitors were leaving messy rinds on grave sites, creating a significant cleanup problem. But instead of a simple "no littering" sign, the city council chose to specifically outlaw a single, delicious fruit, forever enshrining the watermelon as the official forbidden snack of the afterlife. 9. You have to wonder what specific, disastrous event led to a law making it illegal to fall asleep in a South Dakota cheese factory. The mind immediately conjures images of dairy workers face-planting into vats of aging cheddar, creating a public health nightmare. While the exact reason is lost to time, the rule stands as a firm warning. If you're ever touring a creamery in the Mount Rushmore state and feel a yawn coming on, get outside immediately. A nap is not worth the criminal record. 10. Using a fork to eat fried chicken might seem like a personal choice, but in Gainesville, Georgia, it was once a jailable offense. This wasn't some ancient puritanical law. It was a brilliant publicity stunt enacted in 1961 to promote the city as the poultry capital of the world. The ordinance was famously enforced when a 91-year-old tourist was playfully arrested for her culinary crime, earning the town national attention. The rule perfectly illustrates that sometimes the most idiotic-sounding laws are actually the most clever. 11. In Utah, restaurants must prepare alcoholic drinks behind a partition known as the Zion Curtain. This means your bartender is legally required to perform their mixology magic out of your sight, like a wizard brewing a forbidden potion. The drink then emerges, fully formed, from a small window. The logic was to shield children from the supposedly glamorous and corrupting sight of a cocktail being shaken. The result is a bizarre piece of culinary theater where the main performance is hidden, turning every bartender into a mysterious, unseen provider of spirits. 12. In Louisiana, you can be fined $500 for having a pizza delivered to someone's house as a prank. This is not a joke. It's a specific law against harassment by misuse of telecommunications, which explicitly names ordering goods for an unwilling recipient as an offense. The statute elevates a classic high school prank into a serious, finable crime. It means that the delivery driver is not just carrying a pepperoni pizza. They're potentially transporting evidence in a legal dispute, all because someone thought a phantom pizza was the peak of comedy. 13. Public health is important, but Gary, Indiana, once took it to a whole new level by targeting a specific flavor. An old city ordinance made it illegal to enter a movie theater or ride a public streetcar within 4 hours of consuming garlic. This wasn't about vampires, it was about the state officially declaring war on bad breath. Imagine a time when your choice of lunch seasoning could get you kicked off public transportation. It's a level of government overreach that is both intrusive and, frankly, a little insulting to Italian food. 14. The famous saying, "There's no such thing as a free lunch," wasn't just a cynical proverb. In many states, it was the law. During the saloon era, bars would offer a free lunch of salty foods like cured ham, pretzels, and cheese to patrons who bought drinks. The trick, of course, was that the salty food made people incredibly thirsty, causing them to buy far more beer than they'd planned. Temperance movements pushed for laws to ban this practice, making it illegal to use free food as bait to sell alcohol. It was a rare case of the government officially recognizing and outlawing the world's oldest marketing trick. 15. In dozens of American cities, sharing food with the homeless in public parks is illegal. The official reason is always public health and food safety concerns, citing a lack of permits and hand-washing stations. However, critics argue these laws are really designed to make homeless populations less visible by discouraging them from gathering. It's a rule that pits basic human kindness against bureaucratic control. Is this genuinely about preventing foodborne illness? Or is it about using regulations to sweep a difficult social issue under the rug? 16. In the city of Riverside, California, a local health ordinance makes it technically illegal for two people to share a single cup of coffee. You are not misreading that. The rule explicitly prohibits sharing food or drink from the same container, cup, or utensil. While the noble intent was to stop the spread of germs, the literal wording of the law makes a common, romantic gesture, like sharing a milkshake on a first date with 2 straws. A public health violation. It's a classic case of a well-meaning public safety rule that inadvertently outlaws a small moment of simple human connection. 17. Here's a law that feels like it shouldn't need to be a law. In Texas, it is explicitly illegal to milk another person's cow. On the surface, this is just a very specific way of saying don't steal. But the fact that it had to be written down suggests a history of bold, brazen milk thieves wandering into their neighbors' pastures with a bucket and a dream. It's a beautiful glimpse into a time when defending your dairy assets required the full force of the law. 18. In Little Rock, Arkansas, it is specifically illegal to honk your car horn at a sandwich shop after 9 p.m. This is not a general noise complaint law. It's a targeted legislative strike against late-night sandwich enthusiasts. The rule implies the city once faced a very specific crisis. Hordes of drivers, presumably desperate for a pastrami on rye, laying on their horns long after polite society had gone to bed. Pizza places? Apparently fair game. Burger joints? Honk away. But disturb the quiet dignity of a delicatessen after hours, and you're a criminal. 19. Rhode Island is home to one of the most bafflingly specific laws in the nation. It is illegal to throw pickle juice on a trolley. We are desperate to know the story behind this one. Who was this pickle-loving menace, armed with jars of brine, waging a one-person war against public transit? It's a perfect example of a law that must have been written in response to a very specific and very weird person. What's the most bizarre thing you've ever seen someone do with their food? 20. For many years in Nebraska, a bar could not legally sell beer unless it was also brewing a kettle of soup. This was a genius, if ridiculous, workaround from the Prohibition era. To get a liquor license, an establishment had to be a restaurant. What's the easiest way to qualify? Have a pot of soup simmering at all times? This created the hilarious image of tough Midwestern bartenders pulling pints with one hand while dutifully stirring a minestrone with the other, all to satisfy a legal fiction. 21. In California, it is illegal to sell, buy, or serve horse meat for human consumption. While this is a common practice in many other countries, California law explicitly classifies horses as pets, not livestock, making it a crime to treat them as a food source. The law reflects a deep cultural taboo, legally separating animals we consider companions from those we consider cuisine. It's a fascinating case where the government has stepped in to enforce not public health, but public sentiment. 22. Think cattle rustling is a crime of the past? Louisiana would like you to meet its modern equivalent, crawfish rustling. The state takes its crawfish so seriously that it has a specific law making the theft of these crustaceans from a farm or trap a felony, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. That's right, stealing a few mud bugs could land you in more trouble than some violent assaults. It gives a whole new meaning to the term high-stakes seafood. 23. An old Indiana law once made it illegal to manufacture or sell carbonated beverages containing sassafras. This wasn't an attack on root beer, it was a desperate attempt to prevent explosions. Early glass bottling technology was notoriously unreliable, and the natural saponins in sassafras could create immense pressure inside the bottle. The result was a pocket-sized glass grenade that could go off at any moment. The law was a crude but necessary piece of safety legislation for a pre-regulated world. 24. An old Boston City ordinance makes it illegal to eat peanuts in church. This is a wonderfully specific rule that almost certainly dates back to a time when churches were the primary community hubs, and snacks were common during exceptionally long services. One can easily picture a Puritan preacher, deeply annoyed by the constant, distracting sound of cracking peanut shells echoing through his sermon, demanding a citywide ban. It's a perfect piece of legislative history that captures the eternal conflict between religious devotion and the irresistible allure of a salty snack. 25. In New York, slicing a bagel can magically make it more expensive, thanks to the state's infamous bagel tax. This isn't a specific law, but a bizarre tax department ruling. If you buy a whole bagel to take home, it's a tax-free grocery item. But the moment the shopkeeper slices it for you, it is legally transformed into prepared food and gets hit with an 8.875% sales tax. The absurdity is breathtaking. The simple act of a knife moving through bread changes its entire tax status. This applies even if you don't get it toasted or add a schmear. It's fiscal wizardry that punishes the simple desire for convenience. 26. Pennsylvania has some of the most complex and confusing alcohol laws in the nation, which created a bizarre restaurant loophole, the BYOB, or Bring Your Own Bottle. Because getting a liquor license is so expensive and difficult, thousands of restaurants simply don't have one. Instead, they allow you to bring your own wine, which they will then open for a corkage fee. It's a system where restaurants legally can't sell you alcohol, but they can charge you for the service of opening the alcohol you brought yourself. 27. In Alaska, has a law that makes it a crime to give a moose an alcoholic drink. Let's be crystal clear about this. The state government saw a big enough problem with people getting their 1,500-pound, antlered neighbors drunk that they had to write a specific law to stop it. We can only guess at the chaos that led to this rule, but it paints an incredible picture of life in the last frontier. It's official government policy. Do not, under any circumstances, buy a round for a moose. 28. Welcome to Ocean City, New Jersey, a town so committed to old-fashioned propriety that it's illegal to slurp your soup in a restaurant or public eating place. This isn't about being disruptive. It's a specific attack on the sound of soup enjoyment. In a state known for its boisterous and colorful characters, this local ordinance stands as a tiny, polite rebellion. It's a place where you can have a wild time on the boardwalk, but you better eat your chowder with the quiet dignity of a librarian. 29. Wisconsin once waged a full-blown legislative war on margarine, making it illegal for restaurants to serve it unless a customer specifically asked. As America's dairyland, the state viewed margarine as a pale, tasteless fraud attempting to usurp butter's golden throne. For decades, laws either banned yellow margarine or taxed it into obscurity. Even now, a statute insists restaurants must offer real butter by default. 30. Carmel, California, was once home to one of America's most famously dumb laws. It was illegal to eat ice cream while standing on the sidewalk. This wasn't about public health, it was about preventing sticky messes. The law became a symbol of the town's fussy, overly regulated nature until 1986, when the newly elected mayor, a man by the name of Clint Eastwood, famously told the city council that the ordinance had to go. He made their day, and ice cream lovers have been walking freely ever since. 31. Putting an ice cream cone in your back pocket sounds less like a crime and more like a laundry disaster. But in Alabama, it's both. This law has a surprisingly clever origin. It was created to stop horse thieves. Clever criminals would place a cone in their back pocket to lure a horse away without technically stealing it. The state's solution wasn't to redefine theft, but to outlaw the act of turning your pants into a mobile snack dispenser for equine accomplices. 32. For over 6 decades, it was a federal crime to transport an unpeeled onion into the state of Georgia. This wasn't a strange protectionist measure to shield Georgia's famous Vidalia onions from outside competition. It was a desperate biosecurity protocol. The law was designed to prevent the spread of a specific, devastating fungus that could be carried on the outer skin of onions. Enforcement was incredibly strict, with trucks being stopped at the border for inspections to ensure no contraband. Unpeeled alliums made it through. It's a powerful reminder that behind some of the most bizarre-sounding laws often lies a very serious, very specific, and economically vital threat. 33. In the state of Massachusetts, it is illegal to serve alcohol in the same container as a tomato. This means that a Bloody Mary, one of the world's most famous cocktails, was technically an outlawed beverage. This wasn't a modern health fad. It was a remnant of Puritan-era paranoia. Tomatoes, being part of the nightshade family, were once widely and incorrectly believed to be poisonous. Lawmakers, fearing that mixing this toxic fruit with liquor would create a deadly concoction, banned the combination outright. The law stood for decades as a testament to the long and surprisingly durable legacy of bad science. 34. California hosts the world-famous Calaveras County Frog Jumping Jubilee. Naturally, this has led to some very specific legislation. According to the state's Fish and Game Code, it is illegal to eat any frog that dies during a frog jumping contest. This implies a few amazing things. First, that there's a market for athletically challenged frogs. Second, that you need a frog coroner to determine the cause of death before it can be served. A heart attack on the final jump? No soup for you. 35. The state of Maryland treats its blue crabs with the reverence and legal protection usually reserved for precious minerals. State law sets a rigid minimum size for any crab that can be legally sold or served. Any crab smaller than this mandated size is considered undersized and must be immediately returned to the water. This isn't just a friendly suggestion. Restaurants and seafood markets are subject to surprise raids by the crab police, who will meticulously measure the catch with official calipers. Getting caught with undersized crabs can result in crippling fines, and even the suspension of a business license. 36. In the state of Idaho, it is illegal to sell a potato that has rot, frost damage, or sunburn. This sounds like a simple quality control measure, but the law is famously strict and specific. There are entire charts and legal definitions for what constitutes an unacceptable blemish. This means farmers and distributors live in fear of the internal black spot, or hollow heart, conditions that could render their product legally unsellable. It's as if the state views any imperfect potato not just as a bad product, but as an insult to its official identity. 37. In Oklahoma, it is illegal to take a bite out of another person's hamburger without their permission. While this action could easily fall under broader theft or assault laws, the state has a specific statute dedicated to this exact culinary crime. Its very existence strongly suggests that Oklahoma once faced a widespread epidemic of burger violations, so brazen and offensive that they required their own special place in the legal code. It forces us to ask, who was this phantom burger biter? And what did they have against the sacred principle of finishing one's own meal? 38. North Dakota law prohibits restaurants and bars from serving beer and pretzels at the same time. This seemingly pointless restriction is a relic of an old-fashioned legal and moral mindset. Lawmakers at the time saw the classic combination as far too enticing, too stereotypically German, and therefore too likely to encourage excessive, un-American levels of drinking. While the law is no longer enforced, it remains on the books as a silent monument to a time when the government genuinely believed it could legislate away temptation by legally separating a salty snack from its favorite liquid companion. 39. In the state of Washington, it is illegal to serve a drink to a customer who is already visibly intoxicated. This sounds like a standard dram shop law found everywhere, but Washington's is notoriously strict and creates a bizarre legal paradox for bartenders. The law essentially requires them to be amateur doctors, capable of diagnosing a precise level of intoxication. If they serve one drink too many, they and the establishment face severe liability. If they cut someone off too early, they risk angering a customer. It turns the simple act of pouring a beer into a high-stakes legal judgment call, performed dozens of times a night. 40. In Las Cruces, New Mexico, an old city ordinance once made it illegal to carry a lunchbox down Main Street. This strange rule was not born from any safety concern, but from pure, unadulterated snobbery. It was reportedly enacted to prevent local laborers and working-class citizens from being seen with their modest packed lunches, which was thought to project a poor and unsophisticated image of the town to wealthy visitors and potential investors. It was a form of legislated classism, a rule designed to hide the reality of everyday life from the delicate eyes of the elite. 41. Maine takes its clam chowder so seriously that it passed a law making it illegal to add tomatoes to the recipe. This isn't a friendly culinary suggestion from a local chef. It's a legislative decree. The bill was introduced in the 1930s to protect the purity of traditional, cream-based New England chowder from the tomato-based horror known as Manhattan-style chowder. While the penalty was never truly enforced, it stands as a permanent declaration of war, proving that in New England, some culinary differences are so profound they require government intervention. 42. Prepare yourself for a genuine outrage against dessert. In Kansas, it is against the law for restaurants to serve cherry pie with a scoop of ice cream. Pie a la mode, one of the greatest culinary inventions of all time, is an outlaw. The origin of this statute is murky, but its existence is an affront to taste buds everywhere. This isn't just a dumb rule, it's an attack on the very fabric of American happiness. 43. Nebraska once had a law against deceptively packed food containers. This meant that any food sold in a box or can could not have a false bottom or be filled with packing material to make it look fuller than it actually was. In an age before standardized packaging, this was a crucial consumer protection law against scams. It was the government's way of saying, "We know you want to put fewer potato chips in that giant bag, and we are not going to let you get away with it." 44. Welcome to the legal labyrinth of New York's tax code, where a burrito is not legally considered a sandwich. This distinction is incredibly important. Sandwiches are subject to sales tax, but other grocery items are not. A court had to officially rule that, because burritos are typically eaten with a fork and knife, at least in a formal setting, they don't meet the legal definition of a sandwich. This means your lunch choice can have direct tax implications, decided not by ingredients, but by a judge's opinion on proper burrito eating etiquette. 45. In New Jersey, you might want to check the calendar before you buy your next pastrami sandwich. An old state law makes it illegal for a delicatessen to be open for business on a Sunday if the owner is of the Jewish faith. This is a classic example of blue laws colliding with religious observance in the most specific way imaginable. The intent was to enforce a day of rest, but it singled out a specific type of business and a specific religion, creating a strange and discriminatory rule that forced deli owners to choose between their faith and their weekend sales. 46. Wisconsin takes its cheese so seriously that it has a law dictating its age. State law requires that any cheese served or sold must be aged for at least 60 days, unless it's made from pasteurized milk. The original goal was food safety, as aging kills harmful bacteria in raw milk cheese. But the unintended consequence is hilarious. It technically makes serving certain fresh cheeses illegal. This means that in the state most famous for its squeaky fresh cheese curds, a restaurant serving them at their absolute peak of freshness could be in violation. It's a perfect example of a good intention creating a rule that's at war with its own culture. 47. For many years in Minnesota, it was illegal for restaurants to serve pre-buttered bread. If a customer wanted butter, they had to be given the bread and a separate pat of butter to apply themselves. This was part of the state's fierce butter versus margarine wars, ensuring that restaurants couldn't secretly pass off cheaper margarine as real butter. It's a perfect example of legislative micromanagement, where the state was so protective of its dairy industry that it regulated the precise moment of butter application. 48. A law in Connecticut once dictated the exact dimensions and weight of a standard loaf of bread. Bakers who sold loaves that were even slightly underweight could be fined or even publicly shamed. This was an early form of consumer protection, ensuring that customers were getting exactly what they paid for in an era of inconsistent measurements. It paints a picture of a time when your local baker had to be not just an artist, but a precision engineer. 49. In the town of Lehigh, Nebraska, a bizarre ordinance once made it illegal for any baker to sell donut holes. No, this wasn't because they hated the snack. It was based on a piece of logic so profoundly literal, it's almost beautiful. The town's leaders argued that a hole is, by its very definition, the absence of something. It's a space where the donut isn't. Therefore, they reasoned that charging someone money for a donut hole was the ultimate act of fraud. You were literally selling nothing. It was a law that turned a beloved bite-sized treat into a criminal swindle. Okay, we've gone through 49 points with just one grand finale left. But before we get to number 50, it's time for the final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the most incredible rule on today's list goes to Chicago's law against eating in a place that is on fire. Simply because it proves that the city's food is so legendary, people would apparently rather face a fiery death than leave their deep dish pizza unfinished. Do you agree with our verdict? Or did another law deserve this dubious honor? Let us know in the comments. And now, for our final number, 50. In Mobile, Alabama, it is illegal to say the words hot dog in a way that could be misinterpreted as a lewd or indecent comment. This isn't about the food itself, but about the name. The law is a relic from a time of extreme public prudishness, where city officials were so concerned about double entendre that they regulated the very name of a popular food. It represents the absolute pinnacle of dumb food laws, one that isn't about safety, fraud, or even economics, but about the government trying to wash a sausage's mouth out with soap. So, that was our tour through America's legal cookbook, apparently written by committees with a terrifying sense of humor. These laws are more than just funny. They're a perfect map of our weirdest fears and priorities. Pick the single most idiotic law from our list and, in the comments, write a serious-sounding justification for why it must exist. We're not looking for jokes. We're looking for the most plausible defense you can invent. Go on. Show us your inner lawyer. Subscribe for more journeys into the beautifully absurd.